Well, if you follow women's tennis at all or are familiar with Venus and Serena Williams, chances are at some point you've heard people comment on the sisters' athletic and muscular physiques. So what was it about a New York Times story about Serena's body image that stirred such outrage?
The day before she blasted Venezuela's Garbine Muguruza off the court in this year's Wimbledon final, the New York Times published this story about tennis's top 10 women and body image. Reporter Ben Rothenberg even got Serena Williams on the record saying things like, "I'm really happy with my body type, and I'm really proud of it." But that wasn't Rothenberg's take. He wrote, "Her rivals could try to emulate her physique, but most of them choose not to." What? Forget the fact that none of the top 10 players could emulate Serena, even if they wanted to. Maria Sharapova and Victoria Azarenka, to name a few. Rothenberg then backs up his premise with this outlandish quote from the coach of Poland's Agnieszka Radwanska. "It's our decision to keep her as the smallest player in the top 10. Because, first of all, she's a woman, and she wants to be a woman." What? Yeah, I'll hold my breath for Radwanska's Vogue cover portrait. At any rate, the tin-eared Rothenberg told New York Times public editor Margaret Sullivan that he was disappointed and surprised by the negative feedback, some going so far as to call him racist. But that's what happens when you appear to validate ugly stereotypes about beauty and what's feminine.
First of all, as a tennis fan and a huge fan of the Williams sisters and somebody who watches every match, a discussion about their body types is normal and totally within the realm for a reporter too. I mean, it's a discussion that goes on in every living room in America when they're watching them. I mean, I'm mesmerized by Serena's body. But he took this take. He made this assumption that most of the top 10 and other women players would find Serena's body type and therefore Serena unfeminine. And Serena doesn't feel that way. And by the way, he glossed over a couple of the other players like Eugenie Bouchard from Canada. He said, yeah, I'm trying to get more muscle mass. I'm trying to bulk up. And he was going after, there was another German player who said she didn't like the photographs of their arms, but he was taking a storyline. In hindsight, he says, oh, I rewrote the top. I probably shouldn't have focused on Serena, but she was the story. And I believe legitimately, but not the take that he had.
I got to say, I had a very different reaction when I read this story. Initially, before the blowback, and then when I saw the blowback on Twitter, I read the story as essentially the authors sort of quietly shaming everyone else at the top of women's tennis for not wanting to have the muscle structure, for not wanting to put in the effort. I read all the quotes from the coach of the number 10 player saying we want to keep her the smallest player. And I don't think you could read I read the article at least. I didn't read the article saying that he was endorsing that. I think he was essentially saying, look how stupid all these other people are. Why is it that Serena Williams in her 30s is so dominant and has been so dominant for so long? And I saw the article as a legitimate way to look at why is it that she's sort of an outlier. Even why haven't people learned from her incredible success?
Well, I think one thing that I thought I was going to have the reaction you describe having when I read the piece before I read it. I thought it was going to be sort of, we're just letting these people speak for themselves to bring these attitudes to the fore. When I read it, I had your reaction, Emily, and one big problem I had, and you just touched on it, is the notion that if these other players would just lift some weights, then they could hang with Serena Williams. Yeah. And that was implicit in the argument he was making, and I think it's preposterous.
She doesn't lift weights.
She doesn't lift weights. No. And she's not good because she has decided that she's willing to be less feminine or correspond with possibly pernicious stereotypes of what it means to be feminine. She's good because she's a great athlete, once in a lifetime talent. And I thought that the piece suggested otherwise. Yeah. That was what I really disliked about it.
Well, unlike Josh, I had the disadvantage of not reading the piece until I knew what the reaction had been. So I was reading it totally with that view in mind. I do think the piece failed on a number of levels. Since the discussion is somewhat about sexism, I suppose I'm wandering into dangerous territory here in saying something that could be perceived as sexist.
Go ahead.
But what stunned me is that we're talking about an exceptionally attractive young woman here. And there's been all this controversy over the years, which I really wasn't aware of, about her physique and this and that. I just found the whole thing kind of bizarre. And I essentially agree with Adam that it was sort of suggesting that, well, any of these players could do what Serena Williams did. Oh, well, yeah.
I did say what?
Yeah, exactly. That makes no sense at all.
What cannot be left off the table is that Serena Williams is a black woman. There is a huge overlay of racism. We know about all kinds of stuff that's been said about her physique, exactly racist. I mean, the Russian guy said, the Williams brothers, it's frightening when you look at them. There is a long history in this country of comparing athletes who are African American or black with animals. That's where this is all about. There is some sexism. She is a woman after all, but the racism cannot be ignored. That's exactly where he went. And I think
Was that Williams Brothers thing in that piece?
That was, yes. I mean, the guy quoted that. He quoted the guy, this Shamil, whatever his name is, Taparkasov or whatever, the Russian guy. What I think is important in the response from the public editor is that Rothenberg should have challenged norms when instead of taking them as a given. That is the bottom line. So he took as a given, these people are just talking about, body type in a vacuum. They are not. They are using Serena Williams in the both sex and race history of this country. And that's what I resent about this deeply, that he did not address that. And then he set her apart to make it seem
but
like.
Never, without mentioning the fact
exactly,
that she was,
Exactly. So there you got it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
We should also mention that when the Times, the most offensive quote in the piece,
was
whatever
from
the
coach.
intent of including it was from the coach who
Yes.
said,
I know, but he got kind of labeled with that.
Well, but what I think is important about that is that is, as you put in your piece, that's what the Times used when they tweeted this out.
That's exactly right.
She's a woman and she wants to stay a woman. That's what the Times put out on Twitter. And you can't use something like that to promote the story without being accused of endorsing that viewpoint.
All right.